Well, thank you, Mr. Chair and Ranking Member, for holding this hearing. Thank you to all of our witnesses for being here today and for the work that you all do. And I wanted to start with a question to Dr. Russell Lowry Hart. First of all, thank you again, sir, for being here. While college enrollment for some students has been on the rise, college completion rates continue to lag. More than a quarter of low-income students are dropping out before obtaining a credential. We know that 80% of all jobs require some form of post-secondary education or training, meaning a large number of those non-completers will find it difficult to find a job and in turn not be able to pay back their student debt. We see that, in fact, 60% of student loan defaults are by individuals who owe less than $10,000. And those students want to make a difference for themselves and their families, they run into countless barriers along the way, and I know you all have talked about that today. So it's clear that our financial aid system isn't meeting the needs of today's students, and again, I thank you for outlining some of those cases. Doctor, I know you have already talked about some of the ways that we need to support students who are working to complete a degree, but is there anything you haven't mentioned in terms of helping these students who are talked about by these statistics that you'd like us to think about?
The one thing that I would want to add that gives me great hope is over the last 3 years at Amarillo College, we have built a social services system that connects students to food pantries, clothing closets, childcare, and community resources that already exist. Since we've implemented an intensive social services system on a case management process, our completion rates have gone from 19% in 3 years to 45% in 3 years. When you remove a barrier, you help a student complete, and then you solve long-term issues and open up opportunities that that student might not have otherwise.
Well, thank you for that. That's consistent with some experiences we've had in New Hampshire, too, and I'm very grateful for your work. Dr. Donarski, I wanted to talk a little bit about graduate student loans. Our graduate students are often saddled with very high levels of loan debt, but they are also, as I understand it, the least likely to default on student loans. The current Graduate Plus loan was created so that graduate students can borrow up to their cost of attendance and have the protections of a direct loan rather than be forced to borrow in the much more selective private loan market, which is subject to underwriting criteria that are based fundamentally on whether you're already financially well off. Under the House Republicans' proposal for the Higher Education Act, the amount graduate students can borrow would be capped at $28,500, far below what many graduate and professional programs actually cost. Supporters of this proposal say colleges will be forced to reduce their programmatic prices, but there's really no evidence to suggest that that's actually going to happen. Capping what a graduate student may borrow will not automatically reduce their cost of attendance, and once again, graduate students will be forced into the private market, where interest rates can be well over 13%. This could further widen inequality in who is able to access a graduate-level degree. Those who pursue and need graduate-level degrees include teachers, nurses, social workers, and a lot of fields where we should be attracting more students, not putting up more barriers. How do you think the capping graduate school loans provision would impact low-income students who pursue a graduate degree? And do you believe caps would, in fact, drive down programmatic college costs or graduate program costs?
Well, historically, in our loan program, we did have caps on graduate loans, so it's a fairly new innovation that the caps were taken off, and borrowing took off as well. So it is indeed true that grad students have some of the lowest default rates. So in terms of actual defaults, we're looking at maybe 6%. There are problems concentrated in the for-profit sector. So, my concern is that people are being allowed to borrow too much for an education that's not doing them much good, right? And caps serve as a crude way to indirectly protect people from ending up with more debt than they can handle given what they've acquired in education.
I guess my follow-up there would be, and I'm just about out of time, so my follow-up there would be, but capping it at an artificially low place makes them incur debt in the private market, which is also harmful.
The private market needs better regulation.
Okay.
So in particular, I think that private student loans should be able to be escaped through bankruptcy.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.